So we're in the week of Thanksgiving. Gratitude. The talk today, the theme for the month is I am grateful for me. We each say it to ourselves. And today's talk is from whom do I learn? Another way to put that is who influences me the most? So I just want you to think about that. Who do you learn from throughout your day, your week? Just even this past week. Sorry, got a frog in my throat. Even this past week, think about what were you learning and where were you learning it from? What was influencing you? What was your greatest influence this past week? Even think about it today. Where have you, since you woke up this morning? Have you learned anything? Where have you been in your sources? What's influenced you since you woke up this morning? Does your biology influence you? Like how much sleep you got? If you have caffeine, is that influencing you? Conversation that you had, something you read. This becomes really important, and I didn't realize how important it was. When I was in college, I was a psychology major. Now, this was only a bachelor's, for those of you who have higher degrees in psychology. You may have learned more, but when I was in my bachelor's of psychology, what I was learning I was interested in what made us who we were, and most of the focus seemed to be on what we learned growing up by a lot from our parents, from our the main caregivers in our world, as well as our biology. So I was interested in child development. I was also interested in criminal psychology, so what made people do bad things. But the class, I only took one class that really surprised me, was the social psychology class. And I took it because it was required. I had no idea. I remember because I was so startled, because everything I had been learning is about what your parents did or didn't do to form how we perceived ourselves. And I had no idea how much we impact one another. And it was study after study after study how much our behavior changes the moment someone else walks into the room. I might be one thing by myself, but the moment I'm with other people, I change. My behavior changes, what I'm thinking changes, how I hold my body changes. It's gender, it's homogeneous. So if you're with all women and a man walks in, that group, the energy of that group will change. If it's all men and a woman walks in, the energy will change. So you can be in a homogeneous group, and then if someone of diversity walks in, everything, the energy changes. The study, if I wasn't watching it, I wouldn't even believe some of them. So I remember there was a group of people studying, and they were being shown graphs. And everyone was in on the study except for one person. They didn't know that everybody else was in it. So at first, everything made sense. And then they would get to sort of what looks alike, what looks different. And then they would get to a graph where literally the things that look totally opposite. And everyone in the group would say, well, those look the most alike. And you could see the person who was being experimented on would be looking around at everybody and like, really? You think? And then they would go along with it. They're like, well, yeah. And normally, of course, they wouldn't do that, but they think they're nuts because everyone else is so sure that these two. And there was another one where they were all in a waiting room. And if you're by yourself and smoke, it wasn't really smoke, but they would make it look like smoke come through the vent. If you were by yourself, you would get up pretty quickly and go tell somebody. If there were other people in the room who were they didn't know they were part of the experiment, they wouldn't get up. If the other people didn't get up, they wouldn't get up, and they would just sort of wait and say, well, you're going to go tell somebody, or I'm going to tell somebody. I mean, just all these little things. Facebook has done studies that what they would do is they would put posts, and they put a little positive message in the post. And what they found is that even if someone has read a little, not even a big positive post, just a little bit of a positive post, they were much more likely to post positive posts themselves. If they put a little bit of negativity in the post, the people who read it would much more likely post negative posts. And they don't even know they're doing it. We're making correlations all the time. So we are constantly, none of us gets away from it. None of us gets to say, I'm not influenced. None of us is an island. So we are, every moment of every day when we're around people, or even not around people, but getting on a social media or emailing or on the phone, we're being influenced, or TV, whatever the connection with the outside world is. We're being influenced. And now I think it's even heightened. with the post-election season. We feel the collective energy. Everyone's, "Whoa." There's a lot of that. Now we're going into the holiday season. Starting this week, we have Thanksgiving, and we're all the way to the end of the year. We have all that collective energy. We have a cultural belief system of the intensity of this time of year. So we have a lot of things influencing us now more than ever. We always have it, but now everything seems just a little bit more intense. It's interesting because Yogananda said that who we surround ourselves with makes an incredible difference. That's as important as our spiritual practice. That if we are on a spiritual path, we need to be surrounding ourselves with people who are awake, who are also on the spiritual path. Because people who are unconscious will pull us down. And I love that he said, even me, I can't, anyone, even spiritually enlightened people, if I go into a group of people and I don't have my people to support me energetically, I get pulled down. I can't, one person, no matter how clear you are on who you are, you get pulled in. It's this magnetic, energetic pull. And maybe you could hold off for a while, but over time, it's going to start pulling you down. And Oprah Winfrey, I just read, said the same thing. You should be around higher consciousness people. But the thing about holiday seasons is we often don't get a choice. We have to be around people we don't want to be around. The rest of the year, or we have a lot of shoulds around this time of season. The rest of the year we get to choose who we're around. But the holiday season, there's a lot of pressure of the shoulds, of who I'm supposed to be around. And that just even making a decision, I don't want to be around those people because they don't serve me, that feels like a big deal. Like everything just feels more magnified at this time of year. Now, I also want to say, I celebrate, for those of you who love this time of year, have a family you love being around, and it is an incredibly joyful time of year. I don't want to take away from your joy. I think it's fabulous. I am happy and I celebrate with you because we are here to have joy. And that's the intention of the season, is to have and feel that joy. And some of you may feel both. Like sometimes I feel really joyful and sometimes I feel sad and stressed out. So we go back to this, okay, I'm grateful. I want to be grateful, but the season's really hard, can be really hard. From whom do I learn? Who has the most influence on me? So I'm going to just give you the answer. And you know what I'm going to get, right? You all know the answer, right? The divine love intelligence. This presence, spirit, God. Now, how can we get to a place where God has the most influence, not just an influence, but the greatest influence during a time like this season? I'm just going to call it this season. 3 ways. And you have to remember it because Sheila's missing service today and someone's got to tell her, okay? So the first way is what we talked about 2 weeks ago. You have to spend time with yourself. I am grateful for me. We don't experience anything in this season that isn't happening through us. I'm not experiencing the season through Jack. I'm not experiencing the season through you. I'm experiencing it through me. We never get away from ourselves 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so for me, it's a non-negotiable, especially at this time of year. You have to spend time with yourself. If you really want God to be the greatest influence in your life, you have to spend time with that divine presence within you. And I don't mean just 2 minutes of, okay, just checking in, good, all right, move on. I mean some quality time. One of the ways to do that, besides prayer and meditation, and I don't say it much because I take it for granted, is reading. Is reading spiritual books that take you to a higher level. From wherever you are, you always feel like it's stretching you a little bit. I can't imagine going a day without doing the readings that I do. Because no matter how much I do spiritual work, I'm still operating at a certain level of state, so I pick authors, spiritual teachers who I feel vibrating higher than me, and I read them every single day to lift me, to raise me every single day from the place where I am to the next place. That's one way, by spending time with ourselves. I'm being quiet, I'm listening, and I'm opening myself to a higher vibration every single day. That's part of what we do when we spend time with ourselves, is spend time with that highest God self, which are my teachers. They are my highest God self. They are one with me, and they are here to serve, because we're one, that highest part of me. Now, I recognize for many people we have busy lives. Sitting down and reading a book for half an hour may not be a possibility, especially if you also want to do prayer and meditation. So I was very struck by one of the students who recently graduated from spiritual leadership. Wayne was in our class, and we all know Wayne, can look at him, he definitely goes to the gym. And I made an assumption about Wayne. I made an assumption that when he was at the gym, he's listening to hard driving music, lifting those weights. And I said, no, I don't listen to that music. I listen to Alan Watts. Do you all know who Alan Watts is? He's a Buddhist spiritual teacher, very awake and very conscious. And that's who he's listening to every day while he's doing his workout. That if you don't have time to sit down and read, but you need time to yourself and you need time for your God self, that highest part of yourself, if you do not have time to read a book, if you have a commute, listen to it in your ears, listen to it into your car when you're at the gym. But what it teaches me and reminds me is that there's many ways to do it, but once you make it a priority, you will find the time. When you realize that everything around you is influencing you, so why don't you hit the highest level influencing you, which is your God self? So my invitation, I think this is really non-negotiable. Because I love you all. Spend time with yourself, with your God self every day, especially during this season. It has to be a non-negotiable part of your life. Everything in our life is influencing us, is asking for us to pay attention to it, is asking us, we have to stand in what we believe. So that's one. The second one is, so now we're in the social situations, whether it's holiday time, Thanksgiving time, at work parties you may or may not be comfortable with. And the thing about family times is sometimes you're with family, but your intimate family, but they bring cousins or friends or people you don't know very well or spouses. So often there's people we don't know very well. Sometimes you're by yourself and you feel alone, but then there's always people around. And then we have our work parties and all these shoulds. Again, we're in a season of shoulds. Learn. We're here to grow. Second one is learn from every situation. We do an exercise in foundations class and then later on practitioner training class, which asks you to write about your hidden beliefs, which I always think is funny because if they're hidden, how do you know that you have them? But the way they are hidden and the way we find out we have them is by being around the people who trigger us. The way we be around people that we say, I don't really like that. But rather than judging and saying, I don't like that, or they make me feel bad, use everything as a way to learn about yourself. Remember, the purpose in life is to grow. Every social situation which we are in it as soon as we walk out the door, I don't care if it's at a Starbucks or a family you've been around since you were a baby. Every situation is social, and every situation is an opportunity for us to learn about who we are. As we're interacting, how am I feeling inside? Am I running on old habit patterns of ideas of what this season is supposed to be like? Or am I allowing new ideas and new understandings to come through? I love, there was a guy, someone put out on our ministers listserv, they were doing some process and they were asking for suggestions for deep questions. They wanted to provoke deep conversations, so they wanted to ask deep questions. And the response from this one person who I don't even know was just so brilliant. And he said, it's not really about the question. He said, it's about the answer. He said, generally, we give answers that are really quick, really based on past precedent, really based. So he said, any question can be deep if the answer's deep. And the way you make an answer deep is you slow down. He said, for instance, I still remember it because it was so great. He said, you could ask a simple question like, what's your favorite color? The answer, green. Easy question, easy answer. He said, or you could answer, well, it's a dark green that shows up on the top of a bamboo leaf just as it's emerging from a stem. That's my favorite color. I mean, he just took one simple question and he went so deep with it. And that's what I'm inviting us to do when we're in a social situation. So many times what's going on, we've all been through the season before. We're all fairly mature. So we've had many seasons. So we're walking into the season with all our past history of, oh, this is what happens in the season. This is how I feel. These are the things that show up. So we don't have beginner's mind. We have old history mind. Oh, this is what's going to happen at Thanksgiving. This is how I'm going to feel during the Christmas, Hanukkah, season of light, solstice, end of the year, New Year's. This is how I'm going to feel. This is what I'm going to experience. This is what the family dynamics are going to be. This is what my friendship dynamic. We just go through our whole story. What if we entered it with a Zen mind, with that openness to say, I want to learn something new. I want to be in this season as I've never been before. So every situation I'm in, I'm going to go deeper. I'm going to take my answers deeper and discover more things in myself that I didn't discover before. For instance, I feel stress at Christmas time on two levels because my expectations get higher. So as a mother, my expectation is I really want to make a great Christmas for Julian. So I have that sort of, how am I going to do it this year? He's older now. Expectations are different. And then we're doing Christmas Eve service. As I've shared with some people, I've never been to a Christmas Eve service that I've liked. And I've never done a Christmas Eve service that I like. Because I have such high expectations and they always fall so short. So I already know, I've already noticed it. Oh, there I go with the same thought. It's impossible to have a really good Christmas Eve service. They always are never deep enough for me. They're always too shallow. Even the ones I do, I just never am happy with Christmas Eve. And I just see the habitual. Oh no, I got it coming up, this big Christmas Eve. Maybe I'll make it really good this year. And I'm like, wait a minute, what if I just change my thought patterns? What can I learn about myself and my expectations and what I'm wanting to get or have other people feel or provide? Like, how can I be different with this season, both as a minister and as a mother? That's for me. For all of you, how can I learn about myself? What can I learn about myself? And let your answers go deeper. And the way we do that is by slowing it down, by not coming up with our quick, this is how I always feel, this is what I'm going to feel now, or this is what I feel in this moment. Just slow it down. Well, why do I feel that way? Why when I'm around my family, and then even when you're at the party or your social situation, why am I having this? What's going on here? What's going on with this family member? Just slow everything down rather than go through all the I've already had this relationship before. I've already had this interaction with this person in my family, and it's always the same. Slow it down. What's going on for them right now? What are they going through right now? What are they feeling right now? What am I feeling? What is this? Just start layering. That's when life gets so rich. We're here to grow. When we start learning more deeply about who we are, when we stop living on past precedent and we live in the moment, we start learning. And that's when we're learning, we feel this incredible gratitude. Wow, life is so rich. Even in this old pattern, I found something new. I found something new about myself. I found something new about how we interact. So 1, spend time with yourself. 2, number 2, learn from your interactions as they're happening. Learn. Use this season to learn about yourself. Okay? Learn about yourself when you're with other people. Learn about yourself when you're by yourself. And the third one, as we've all heard this, is the greatest gift we can give is to be present. Our presence is a present. To use that wonderfully cliche, but it's true. That's a great, so we often hear, so we have a lot of expectation about giving gifts. We have a lot of expectation of maybe I want to give my talents, like I give music or art or painting or writing. I write poems or, whatever. I have a gift. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying you yourself, just as you are, not about a doing, but a being. That your being, your presence is a gift. And allow yourself to be that gift. Every one of us gets to be that for each other. We're a family. So the truth is that we are all family. That we have our family of origin, our biological family, but everyone is our family. Being a shy person when I was young, I didn't know how to talk to people. So I was at a 7th grade retreat, came home, my mom said, how was it? Now I had known these kids since I was in nursery school. So I knew them really well, but I said I didn't know what to say. I didn't talk. I just sat staring. I didn't quite grasp the whole small talk thing. So my mom said, Well, the best thing to do when you don't know what to say is ask people questions about themselves. People love to share about who they are, so you need to ask questions. Well, this was a new thought. I didn't have any idea, so I said, well, like what? Like, what kind of question would I ask? She said, well, just ask them, I don't know, if they play an instrument. So a couple of years later, I was dating for the first time, 10th grade, and I'm terrified. We're walking down the street, and this guy I'm on a date with is a soccer player. That's what he's known for. But I'm sitting there. What am I saying? What do I say? Do you play an instrument? And then he said, yes. And I almost had a heart attack. Like, wow. I play the trombone in a jazz band. I'm like, wow. I had no idea. And that set me off on this whole cycle of asking people questions to find out who they were. And it was a learning process. So then, because I had my answer now to have conversations with people, I would just sort of go overdrive. So then I started asking like way too many questions. Someone was like, what, are you writing a book about me? Because I'm like, oh, what about this? Oh, what about this? And then what about, and how'd you do that? You know, because first of all, people got really interesting to me all of a sudden. And I was amazed how much people would share if I just asked. But then I realized then there's questions that are too invasive. So I had to learn that part. I also had to learn that sometimes I wasn't interested in the answer, and that I shouldn't ask a question unless I was genuinely interested in what the answer was coming back to me. And sometimes I didn't want to hear everything. And then I also started to learn to ask questions that I was genuinely interested in the answers. So one of the questions that I love to ask people is, what are you passionate about? What do you care about? What gets you up in the morning? What gets you excited and going? And there's nothing more exciting than talking to people about what they're passionate. People love to talk about it. And then being in Silicon Valley, I also realized sometimes people talked about things I didn't understand in IT, so they start going, I'm like, uh-oh. So then I learned, so then I'll say, well, what is that? Why do you like that so much? What does it make you feel inside? Or kids, how many times do they say, we love video games? And I do not want to hear about the video games. Well, go over this level and this. But then I say, well, how do you feel inside when you're doing it? What makes it, why do you get so happy when you're doing that? It's like going on a treasure hunt with somebody. And suddenly you're getting to feel this connection with people that you wouldn't otherwise know. And we all can do this. This is not a special talent. It is just being interested, being present with other people and saying, I want to know your soul. So when I go to Lucky's, the bookkeeper comes running out to tell me about her daughter's cheer camp in Dallas and how great they did. Or I go to in fact, I just met with a guy who was a barista at Starbucks a few years ago, and we used to talk, and then he went off to college, and now he's back, and he's married with a kid, and we just had coffee at Starbucks as he was catching me up on everything. I mean, our family is everywhere. Everywhere we go. I don't care if it's Starbucks or Lucky or church or your job or your family. Everyone matters. Everyone is interesting. Everyone is a gift. Everyone is beautiful if we take the time to find out about who they are. And it doesn't take long. When I'm standing in line at Starbucks, hey, how's that? They tell me, like, often they're in school. Hey, how did your final exams go? I heard you told me last week you had final exams. How'd they go? Just quick. But if it's consistent and you're continually interested, we build these long-lasting connections with people. And that's God. It is God, seeing God everywhere. Everywhere is our home. Every person is our brother and our sister. Every person is our family. It is not one special time of the year. It is all the time. And when we start living our life that way, the gratitude just overflows. From whom do we learn? What is the greatest influence in our life? When we spend time with ourself, with our God self every single day, non-negotiable, when we learn the dynamics in the social situations that maybe trigger us or are difficult for us, we learn more about ourselves. That is God learning about itself in the world. That is God influencing us, teaching us about who we are. And when we take the time to listen and hear each other's stories and what we care about, then we are God's gift of listening and caring about the people that are in our life, that are crossing our paths. And there's no way not to live a life of gratitude when we live our life knowing that God is always, always the one teaching us. That it is God that is always the one influencing us if we have the heart and the eyes and the ears to hear. You with me on this? This is going to be the greatest holiday. I'm setting a really high expectation. Greatest holiday season ever. But not because externally everything goes the way we want it to. Not because we don't feel pain. Not because everything is perfect. But because we're willing to see the God, whether it's good or whether we call it bad. We are willing to see the God. Learn. Everything is about learning. Learn about the God within us and the God about each other everywhere we go. And healing can happen then. There are people who are going through this season, and this happens every season, and I want to acknowledge it, that there are people who have lost people over the last year. So you're going through the season for the first time without people in your life. It hurts. It's sad. What can I learn? What can I give to myself? What do I need to help me nurture myself? Spend time with myself. Begin to develop loving relationships with other people. Be willing to share my loneliness if I'm missing somebody, grieving somebody. Be willing to be present. Everything is an opportunity to know God. God is what we teach. God is everything, not just the good things. It is everything. And then we realize even those things that hurt, there's goodness in there. One power, one presence. God is our everything. Let this season, this time where everything is telling us what we're supposed to be feeling, what we're supposed to be thinking, what we're supposed to be doing, what our actions are, let us always remember God is the only power. God is the only source. And so let us just